Oh, distant horizons, how I have missed you so. Welcome back to another episode of Minecraft in my forever world. I'm Jake Kelton, and for being such a stickler to myself about making a vanilla-friendly world and vanilla-friendly creations, I just cannot get over how good distant horizons can make my world, especially with all of our beautiful mountains off in the distance and being able to see the entire castle in one go. It's just way too good. But as with all forever worlds, we have 1,000 projects that are never quite completed, and so we're going to ignore those and instead work on a brand new project because that's way more fun. But before we get to that project, I want to talk about a change that I made to the flag. As you can see, it's not quite nearly as animated as it was before. Many of you who may have tried to build the flag yourself, even with the tutorial that I gave, may have experienced issues that I kept having with the concrete powder breaking, because falling entities are just weird in Minecraft, especially when you're unloading or loading or logging in and out of the game. Now that we're looking at the insides of the flag, you can see that it's basically the same design with the sticky pistons, except that instead of having slime, I just have the blocks themselves at the bottom, and then across the top we have our repeaters. The one thing that has kind of changed about this is that we have a different clock over here where we have a wall, and that wall is being observed by this observer that's powering this piece of black wool, powering this 3-tick repeater, which is then going to power the observer and send a signal to the piston, and that's what kind of keeps this clock going, because the piston then breaks the wall, sends the observer, all of that repeats, and you have yourself a forever clock. But the best part about this type of flag is that whether I log in or out of the world, it doesn't matter. It will always run. It isn't nearly as animated as what I really would like to have with the concrete powder. It just looked that much better, but it gives the semblance of animation and means that I no longer have to worry about trying to log in, log out, and turn on and turn off anything. It just can run in perpetuity. So for today's video, we're going to be down in this area working on a brand new build. And you can see that I've already started messing with it a little bit. So let's kind of talk over what I have been messing with and how this is working. See, for a long time, I've really wanted to build a awesome looking sawmill, but sawmills, generally speaking in the game, aren't very animated. And so I've been chewing on a design for a while that used piston feed tapes to move, wood around and make it into a saw. And I mean, that's totally fine. This certainly does the trick. But what makes this feed a little bit different than your standard feed is the way that we've utilized some maybe not so well known tech in the game. See, there's this pretty cool feature that when you connect wood up against leaves, they actually change state, even though you can't actually see any states that change from them. But because they're connected to the wood and recognize that change of state, it will then send a signal through the observer into the piston, and that will then fire it as well. And so you can get some really interesting, almost smooth movement in terms of the chain. To me, it's really cool because it kind of provides this feeling like the chains are kind of being dragged along the top first, right? The top moves, then the bottom, and it all just kind of gets dragged along in one go rather than everything moving simultaneously. And so it adds a little bit extra flair to it. This by itself, however, just simply isn't going to cut it. Get it? Cut it? So let's take a pause on this, move some things around, and figure out what we're going to do to actually upgrade this, because this is barely the start of today's build. See, one of my main issues with this is that it's kind of the wrong angle, in the wrong position. It really should be facing this direction, because I think I want to include some of the woods up here where they're dragging logs down and setting them into our sawmill. And then once they come out this direction, which we'll need to do some terraforming over here, they then can send all of the logs and the goods down the river to the castle or wherever else it is that they would need this wood. And so I think that I need to both move it, and we're going to need to integrate it a lot more into the landscape. But I think there's also a lot more in the animation department that we can do with the actual sawmill itself, rather than just having it kind of going around in a circle. So let me cook for a little bit, and while I do so, I'll tell you about where I've been. See, over the last couple of weeks, outside of life just being crazy busy, I've had a blast being a guest on a number of different community videos, like some podcast episodes, some redstone videos, and some videos that, well, let's just say I'm grateful to have been invited to. But there is another aspect. I have a full-time job, so time is limited. Like all creators, I want to wow you all and myself with every build. And I kind of got stuck on a loop trying to come up with the next best idea to make with my limited time. rather than just picking one and creating it. So, well, even if it doesn't revolutionize the scene, I'm just gonna keep making awesome things that I enjoy making, and hopefully you'll enjoy the journey with me. I've got more ideas than sense, so I'm just gonna keep building, and we'll see what comes of it. Hello from a few late nights later, and we've made quite a mess of things. The first design here in the middle was my first attempt at making a slow water wheel, and I've made a water wheel before, but it didn't really utilize the fan technology of using trapdoors. And one of the things I found is that it's incredibly hard to actually slow things down to make a much slower water wheel, because most fans are just spinning and spinning and spinning, and they're just doing their thing. Even this, if I turn it on, is actually kind of fast. But the way that it works with all this terracotta is that it's a piston feed tape, and then utilizes one of these to kind of signify to the observers, hey, go ahead and throw a power through to the trapdoors. But it's a mess. It's broken in multiple ways and just doesn't work really at all. Even when I did get it working, one of the struggles was that observers will both see when you put a block in front of them and as the block is leaving. So it actually powers 2 at a time rather than 1 at a time. And this was just a mess, but it got my Discord thinking, and the Buildstone community came through. Rubik's Potato kind of threw out some cool designs as well, and I ended up utilizing a little bit of his ideas plus some of my own to come up with a new design, and this one works a lot better. This is still an absolute enormous travesty. We're going to ignore most of that and just flip it on and enjoy the awesome, much slower movement. That is way better. That is actually what I was looking for, and it utilizes the comparators to compare whether or not the different copper blocks are turned on or off based upon the different signals that are coming through to them. And that's the type of thing that I was looking for. Now, we may still be able to make it a lot smoother and, you know, a much better background as well, because this still kind of has the idea of a fan because of the wall in the background. I'd love to be able to make it hollow, but I don't know that that's possible. And so for now, we're going to simply enjoy what I was able to make with this and call this done. Yeah, we're gonna have to hide all of this. But hiding redstone is one of the things that I do best, so we'll worry about that at a later time and instead come and look at this machine over here, which I thought would be really, really awesome. One of the things I learned when doing a bunch of research on all this stuff was that there's a art to stripping wood and stripping the bark off of logs. And I thought it'd be really cool to try to make an animated bark stripper. That seems pretty awesome to me. And no, don't think too hard about that sentence. While the middle here is uncovered, this would be covered up to hide a bunch of the animation that you'll see, and all you'll get is the log will move forward and now have a stripped version of that log that comes out the other side. This is incredibly slow, but one of the things that you will notice as I keep going is that the way that the piston feed tape is yeah, a little bit misaligned. It doesn't actually line up the number of blocks very well. And so as the feed tape wraps around, the number of logs on one side versus the other is going to get out of position. And so I need to figure out how to make sure that the right logs always line up. And so we will always have an actual swap of non-stripped log to stripped log instead of what we're getting here, which is everything is off. But I think once I figure this out, it'll be really cool because we'll always have fresh logs coming in one side and we'll always have stripped logs coming out the other side. And once we hide all of the monstrosity that is in here, it's gonna look really awesome. But I may have to call in my good friend Nugs to help me out with the redstone on this because this is just a little bit over my head. Well, it must be my birthday or something, because I have been blessed with not only one, but two designs. One from the great Nug Still Plays, and one from the incredible Rubik's Potato. And we'll go through both of them, their pros and cons, and then we'll figure out which one we actually want to use for my world. So let's start with Nug Still Plays design. This one is pretty much the same thing that I built, but just way better. So much more compact redstone, way faster too. So we'll turn on the clock here and you can see that the logs are going to all swap out, and look at how beautiful this is. This is what I was looking for, especially with the ability for new logs to pop up here, and then logs to go away over here. And utilizing the trapdoors as kind of a track for them to go along, all we need to do is throw down some kind of staircase or something hidden here, and you see all of the logs going in on one side, getting stripped, and coming out the other side as well. And then we can do a lot of decorating and hiding all of this stuff if we want to, so that way things look a little bit more fancy. Maybe we, instead of putting this one here, we actually do something like this, right? This I think would look pretty good, especially if we kind of fill in the corners a little bit. Logs come in one side and stripped logs come out the other side. This is what I was hoping for. However, Rubik's Potato actually got an earlier version of my ideation on this, and we've got to talk about it. See, the actual earliest version of this block swapper that I tried to design used rails instead, because it's a little known fact, but you can actually piston rails and they will stay on the ground. It's really cool. And I wanted to use these rails as kind of the track that the logs were riding along. But in the process of my ideation, I abandoned it because, as you'll see here, when the rail gets moved over an empty space, it's actually going to pop off. And so I kind of had to switch things up because I felt that I was just not able to get the rails to follow along with those logs, especially with all of the block swapping that we were doing. And that's what brings us to Rubik's Potato's design, using the rails in a way that I never really thought about before, which was by using slime blocks to actually grab the dirt and the rails. You can elevator them up and down and move them around by always keeping the rails on the block because you're moving both of them at the same time. So let's go ahead and turn this machine on, and you'll see that the rail and the log will both move over simultaneously. This sticky piston here actually grabs the rail and pulls the rail in to then ride the dirt elevator up and down. This is just ridiculous. And once the rails get over to this side, you simply use a double piston extender to put the dirt block in position for the rail to get moved over, and then it goes along the rest of the track. This is actually a genius design and really feels like the logs are rolling along the track. It's slow, but I don't care. In fact, that uses the rails is so ridiculously cool. I think we can probably decorate the bark stripping part here a little bit better, but hey, Rubik's Potato is a redstone genius, not necessarily a decorating genius, so that's what we're here for. There's an extra bonus with this design that uses the I Hate Falling Blocks minecart clock design, which is super cool, and you absolutely should check out that video if you haven't. And while Nugs did an absolutely stellar job of being able to both minimize the amount of redstone that was involved in my design and match what I actually was making in my ridiculously small brain way, I have to say that we're going to be using Rubik's Potato's design because this is what I really envisioned. I just don't have the ability to make this sort of stuff. And so get yourself a community like I did and some incredible redstoners who are able to help you out if you don't do this stuff, because my small brain just has a really hard time with it. All right, it's a tough life. So with all that said, we have a bunch of really awesome components, but no finished build yet. So we're gonna have to move all of these things around and try to get them in position for the final decoration process. And that's gonna take a lot of work. So let's hop into a time lapse and get it done. And boy, oh boy, it wasn't just one time lapse, but a whole series of time lapses, because this whole process took way longer, as per usual, than I thought that it was going to be. So you can see I started off by kind of layering in a bunch of the redstone machines, trying to make them make sense as the logs are going from being raw logs through the bark stripper into being chopped up by our saw blades and processed on the other side. And so then once I had them in position, I could layer in my walls, get the basic structure shape down to make sure that it made sense. I threw in some framing as well, because that always helps me to kind of understand where the building is going to go. And then I started working on the area above the water mill, which I wanted to be a bit of a room because I wanted to turn it into a building, not just a single structure that had some blades, but I wanted to make it a whole medieval build. And you can see I've kind of jumped forward quite a bit. We've got our basic structure now. I didn't worry about detailing or color right now. I just was focusing on the general shape, but I did throw in a dock and a little bit of an open air porch over on this side, so that way we could have an area where all of our processed planks were going to be moving down the river later. And then I could finally get started on the actual detailing. And so I started throwing in some extra colors, some leaves, working on the roof, adding in a bunch of windows and the chimney as well. And then is our gradients. And so you can kind of see the process that I go about when I'm working on a build is just get the general shape, then start to throw in some of the extra details, and then go crazy with the gradients and all the different blocks that we have at this point in the game. And there's a whole bunch of them. I did use Axiom to copy and paste around a couple of different elements, but I always went back in by hand and kind of customized it a little bit so it didn't just look copycatted all over the place. Like this area over here, kind of building a retaining wall to keep some of that dirt back, and it gives me more space to decorate. This is one of those builds that every time I think I've done with it, my brain says, but wait, there's more. There's so much detailing that I put into this thing, and I absolutely love it. Let me walk you through everything that I've done and everything that I haven't done, because there's definitely some. Starting off, I thought that it would be fun to add a little bit of detail on the other side of the river and this walkway that we can walk over, because there was some pictures that I saw and some references that I was looking at that allowed a little bit of a bridge over top of the river where our water mill is going to go. And so I think this water wheel looks really good here. It's got some nice animation to it. And it's just that subtle extra touch that is really, really cool, especially because it's so slow, whereas a lot of other fans we've seen are a lot faster. If we come down here, this is the loading side of the sawmill where we have our carts, and these carts are bringing out all of our lumber that can then be loaded onto a boat, which we are missing. We have not built a boat, so that is one thing that we are going to have to come back and finish. And you come inside, and this is where all of the stacks and pallets of different logs and lumber are, where you can kind of shave. And this is because, again, it's a sawmill. We're just kind of doing the raw goods here. We're not really stressing too much about any of the finer detail. This would go off to go build houses or make furniture or whatever else that you want. Out here, we have our lever. This is what we're going to use to actually start the whole factory, the whole sawmill factory. And we're going to skip past this here and come look at our working bark stripper over here. Oh, this thing is so, so cool. Again, thank you to both Nugs and Rubik's Potato for your help in getting some of the redstone worked out for this. But I love seeing the logs kind of coming out of our log pile here and then coming along. And this is kind of our imaginary automated stripper that kind of just strips all the bark off and then runs into the factory as it runs along our little tracks, and looks really, really good. And then up on top, behind the logs, we have some more of our different, batches of planks and everything that's up here. Over here, eventually it would be cool to build more log piles like this, where we're, pulling down all of the trees and everything, but I've not gotten around to that yet. Because then over here, we got some more stuff piled up. This is our log chopper. So we have our saw blades here, and the logs come along and chop across them. And what's really cool was I put a little bit of extra redstone touch into this, because we could have just left this as is. There's the chain we talked about before, kind of pumping along and pulling our log. It looks fine. Everything looks really good. But if you check it out, boom, look at that, a safety feature. So now as you're coming along, the only time that the saw blades will actually come up is in preparation for when the next log comes around. So you'll see, hey, time to start chopping again. And all of this is automatic. I love it. So it kind of pops up and down, chopping away as need be. But our little gazebo over here looks so good. I think this type of stuff needs to be built in a lot more builds because it's so beautiful. It's just signs stacked on top of itself. It looks really, really nice. I'll kind of show you some of the redstone that's in here. And I've not built a doorway, so we're going to go into spectate cam really quickly and kind of pop down into here and look at our absolute travesty mess of redstone. This thing is awful. So redstoners, cover your eyes. Don't look at it. But it's a very, very simple process here for the observer seeing our logs as they come around, setting off our piston feed tapes, which are using the leaves and the observers and our little logs to kind of reset it every time, and that's fine. But what's cool is that underneath it, we have this little gizmo over here, and we'll see it actually turn off. This is what turns on the sticky pistons, pushing our little saw blades. And then as soon as it turns to glass, we have a little bit of an extra buffer window here. All of the blades retract, and then it's glass. So glass won't allow our redstone signal that you see there through here. And so that's where it doesn't power the pistons that are pushing. There it goes, powers it. and that's what sets it off. So I have 2 of them because I just wanted to play it safe and just give myself an extra little bit of buffer. I'm really not as smart at redstone as a lot of you may think that I am, but I have a lot of fun with it anyway. And no, don't you dare think that I'm going to explain how this thing works, all right? Because I barely understand how it works, and there ain't no way that I'm going to be able to explain it in detail. So you're just going to have to come on the Discord and download a schematic or something, or ask a bunch of questions, because I don't know how to do it, all right? I can't explain it. The other thing that I'd like to add to this area at some point is the ability to actually like drop logs off somewhere over here, or maybe even drop logs over here, some barrel or something, that then those logs could be processed and turned into planks and stairs and slabs and anything else that we need. And so it'd be kind of cool to actually use this as, with the auto crafter, a bunch of auto crafting all the different like logs and everything that we could use. I think that would be really neat to be able to add some use to it rather than just the kind of decorative purpose that it is. But we got lots of room for redstone underneath everything, and so I think that there's definitely room for that if we decided to do that. Let's turn this off for now, and I'll show you upstairs, which I almost never do this, but this is one of the few times that I unfortunately have not decorated it at all. This place is totally empty because, my goodness, the rest of the build was absolutely insane to figure out and to build, and this is in creative mode as well. And so I think it'd be fun, though, to do a live stream with you all where we kind of decorate this together and come up with some cool ideas for the family that's living here and how they function and everything. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And so maybe we'll save this for a live stream, and we'll live stream some interior decoration with Jake Kelton and do some cool ideas. But out here, we can come out onto the balcony on the back porch, which I really haven't shown off. But we have a little bit of a balcony with some flower beds. It's really nice. And I did do some decorating down here where we have a path that comes out this way. And so the back of the build also looks pretty nice as well. I at least wanted the exterior to be done. And I think that this is a good way, at least a good start. The path over here should kind of wrap around all the way down here. Oh, well, we got to fix the terraforming there. That's fine. And so that's going to be our sawmill build. It's definitely very close to being completed, but I think, as I said, I want to do a live stream where we're going to add the boat that's over here. We're going to take those paths, finish them wrapping up around the building, and add some of our log piles over to the side where we've chopped some trees down there. This path back here, I'd love to take all the way back over there where we have our little church bandit camp that's over there with kind of a broken down bridge over the gorge that's over here. I think that would be really cool. And then the path that's here, I want to take and kind of wrap around and go right underneath our Four Lords Bridge, I think, over here, over the water, across here. I think that'd be really cool, and kind of wrap it around to the rest of the Centerburg village that we haven't finished off over there. And so there's a lot of cool stuff that we have yet to complete, but I think this makes for a really nice build, and it looks great from our castle up here. We can kind of peek down and see the building and everything that's going on over there. It's just a really, really nice addition to the world. Speaking of adventures, there is one thing I really haven't shown off very much on this channel, and that is on the other side of this beautiful castle that we built, there is this kind of ice spikes feature that I built a long, long time ago, and it's really cool. I haven't really shown it much, maybe in passing once, but it kind of is supposed to look like something hit this area here and blasted all of this ice up in this really cool way. And it's actually before Axiom. This was all built by hand, in creative, of course, but it's pretty awesome. And what I wanted to show off in here is what? Hold on a second. I don't remember putting a chest here. Okay, well, that looks normal for a nether portal. Is it supposed to do that? What? What just happened? Where am I? Hello? Hello? Hello?